love art. I've loved it since I was 8 years old and first got my extra large Canson sketchbook. It made it easy to draw in the corners of assignments and notebooks while my teachers droned on in the background, and impossible not to walk around thinking about everything I could make up once I got home to the comfort of my pencil and paper. I love art, and when you love something, you spend time with it, lots of time. So while I started my art journey drawing things that look like this, eventually I started drawing things that looked like this, and something fascinating happened. People started to care. I'd get comments like, "Wow, you're so talented," or "Did you really draw that?" Or my all-time favorite, "Wow, you're so good at art. I can barely draw a stick figure." While a well-meaning compliment, it's one that stuck with me and somehow rubbed me the wrong way. First, it's not like I woke up one day and started drawing perfectly rendered still lifes. 2, who said stick figures were easy to draw? And 3, even if stick figures weren't the pinnacle of art making, what made being bad at art a bad thing? Now, that might seem self-explanatory, but I think it points to a fundamental misconception. That art is primarily a talent and not a buildable skill. And so if you're bad at it, don't do it. To paint a bigger picture, see what I did there, I'll talk about an experience that fundamentally changed my view on art making. In the summer of 2023, I founded Expression Art Camps in Ikeja, Nigeria. And as a Nigerian American, this experience showed me the privilege of failure. I sat with kids ages 8 through 15, teaching skills ranging from graphite drawing to watercolor painting. And while being able to see everyone's finished pieces at the end of the camp and give away so many free art supplies was a gratifying experience, the moments that I remember that stick with me to this day are when kids' art pieces did not go to plan. As part of the camp, I printed off supplementary materials such as reference photos for kids to use while they were drawing, and I watched as many of them clung to these as lifelines. They glanced frantically between their own drawing and the reference to make sure everything was in line. And as the camp went on and I'd ask how things were going, I'd see frustration start to grow. They were upset at how different their own drawings looked from their original, how bad their art was. I watched them grapple with the reality that just because you have a talent for something or really want to do it does not mean things will always go to plan. It reminded me of my own art failures growing up and even into adulthood. You see, I tried a lot of things growing up, and while art was the thing that stuck, it wasn't an extraordinary talent or aptitude that made me choose art. Like most things in life, it took time and dedication to get to a place where I was proud of what I was making. A lot of times, I threw in the towel and gave up. But I was resilient and rose again, showing that no matter how many times you fail, you will eventually succeed in the end. Well, that's a nice sentiment, but it didn't really ring true for me. You see, for me, art could never be summed up by simply acquiring a skill set. And it became a lot less about learning how to be good and a lot more about learning how to fail. While it's an uncomfortable skill, I think it's one that needs to go beyond the walls of an elementary school or a crumpled up sheet of paper in a trash can. Instead, we should make it a lifelong habit to make bad art. Now, you might be sitting in your seat wondering to yourself, art is cool, but what does that have to do with me? Okay, fair enough, but I'd like to firmly argue that you shouldn't have to be an artist to make art. And it's not just about hanging up a pretty painting on a wall and saying, hey, I did that. I hope that by the end of my talk, you're able to understand that by making bad art, we become better people. Art, like many things in life, is taught. For me, by Instagram videos and YouTube tutorials in my bedroom. For some, by parents and mentors, but for many, in classrooms and schools just like this one. What's become increasingly controversial is whether it needs to be. Today, only 69% of middle school students in the US have access to art education, leaving 2 million with no access at all. This disproportionately affects Black and Latinx populations, who have 40 to 49% less exposure to the arts than their peers. But this isn't just happening in schools. Under our current federal administration, arts organizations such as the National Endowment for the Arts, nonprofits, and even museums are under constant threat of elimination. The arts are under attack. Now let me ask you this. How many of you guys took more than one art class in high school? How about college? Sir Ken Robinson, an important proponent of creative education, once said this: "We don't grow into creativity, we grow out of it." Now you might be thinking to yourself, there's more important classes for you to take: computer science, chemistry, even political theory. But trivializing art in higher education is detrimental to our growing population of young adults. The arts teach important skills such as critical thinking, empathy, and perspective building. Take California public schools, for example, where students said that by taking drama classes, they were better able to understand others' perspectives through character motivation. Or in North Carolina, where an 8th grader said that by taking art classes, she was better able to articulate her own opinions while understanding those of others. The arts make us socially and emotionally intelligent, forming the building blocks of what make us human. When we make the dangerous assumption that these skills are done developing in childhood, we deny ourselves the opportunity to develop creatively as adults. In our modern world, a commitment to failure in craft is resistance. Now, to explain why, I'll ask you this: what is bad art? Or rather, what is failure? Now, there's a couple ways to define this, one being the lack of success. That's simple, cute even, but I prefer this one: the lack of expected action. The difference between the two is potential, it's opportunity. When we penalize failure, we foster risk-averse and fear-driven environments. And this can start out as a bad grade in a traditional academic setting, but can translate into harmful feedback in skill and talent-oriented spaces as well. Now, I remember when I started my art account in high school, and I posted this drawing of Rihanna. Now, I was really proud of this drawing. I had spent hours on it. But after some time of it being up, I got this comment: "I think it's a nice first attempt. I feel Rihanna's face is a little slimmer, though." Now, in this moment, among the sea of positive feedback, this one stuck out like a sore thumb. I thought to myself, wow, I must suck at art. And while that might seem like a drastic conclusion to make, I think it reveals something that I'd internalized about art making and failure. I wanted to take the post down, erase everything, start over, and post it again so that no one could ever criticize my art again. In a world that praises overnight success and efficiency, we inevitably punish the slow process of craft. We are hurtling towards a future, one we don't know very much about, and we're doing it at the speed of light. We're seeing it everywhere, in our offices, our classroom, even in art museums. Here's a fun fact. The average person spends between 17 and 28 seconds looking at a painting. The average artist spends between 3 hours and 4 months on one. That's crazy when you think about it, right? Creativity doesn't fit into the time constraints of modern culture, nor its needs. And while it might be easier to understand why preserving and celebrating art in our current social climate is important, where does failure fit into any of this? Okay, let's return to the definition that I like: the lack of expected action. I'm going to take a second to illustrate something. I know, typical of me, but stay with me. Do you see this dot on the screen behind me? That's going to represent where we are right now, point A. Got it? Okay, now you see this other dot. That's point B. That's where we want to go. Now, if you're a mathematician or a physicist, you might think the best way to get between point A and point B is a straight line. Okay, congratulations. But let's say you start off on your path to point B, and instead you end up over here. Okay, that's not where we wanted to go. So we start over, but next time we end up over here. Okay, still not where we wanted to go. So we try again, and again, until finally we get there. Whew, that was stressful. But instead of a straight line, we end up with something that looks like this. Now, when looking at these two maps, let's call them, which one is more successful? Or rather, which is more valuable? I personally prefer the spiky dandelion-looking thingy, but I'm obviously biased. Now, this isn't a novel concept. We've all heard it before. It's not about the destination, but the journey. But sometimes what we really mean by this is, it's not about the destination, but the journey that will eventually lead you to the destination, that you can post all about on LinkedIn. Now, one element I left out of my equation is time. It takes time to succeed, but it also takes time to fail. I remember that when I made bad art, I'd often be overwhelmed with intense feelings of shame. But without these moments, I wouldn't have been able to build a creative practice. After I'd learned how to draw, which is something you can really never stop learning, I moved on to my next major art skill, painting. Now, you'd think with the fundamentals of drawing in my arsenal, this would have been a walk in the park. Well, yeah, it was a walk in the park. If you were a baby walking with 2 left feet while being heavily intoxicated, I know, a strange image, but it was embarrassing. I mean, I was the art girl. How could I not know how to paint? So I made it my life's mission to fight against this, watching an egregious amount of YouTube tutorial and Instagram videos, mastering all mediums, acrylic, watercolor, gouache. I spent hours, weeks, months perfecting my craft. But in this period with a crazy learning curve, I had to learn to sit in the discomfort of being bad. I was forced to. I reckoned with feelings of shame, the knowledge that my dedication wouldn't always produce the results I wanted. I hated it every second. But by welcoming failure in my creative pursuits, I not only became a better artist, but changed my relationship with art, myself, and other people. Now, this isn't a skill that's taught in your standard school curriculum. It's one that creative ventures, music, painting, dance reveal more than anything else. They are the naked disciplines. They beg to be seen, to be heard, and to be felt without restraint. They face us to force ourselves and our failures, often blurring the lines between the two. When we cut these out, we not only flatten our perspective, but our imagination. We praise the best, the fastest, the easiest route between point A and point B, and we slip towards sameness. By letting failure guide us in our creative pursuits, we not only challenge our brain, we rewire it, promoting neuroplasticity and resilience. I used to throw away my bad art. I stopped when I realized that I spend more time looking at it. 9 times out of 10, they make for far more interesting pieces and much better stories. I think I've successfully proved that today. I'll leave you with this. During my time at Expression Art Camps, there was one student who I really struggled to encourage. I remember that she was trying to emulate a character she really liked using watercolor, but all the colors had started bleeding into each other, kind of making a muddy mess. I panicked as I watched tears start to stream down her face. "It's terrible," she mumbled. I struggled to find the right thing to say, and we both just kind of stared at it for a while. It's not perfect, and that's okay. For the rest of the camp, she tried to fix her mistakes, and by the end, when I asked her again, she still said it didn't look exactly how she wanted, but it was still something she could hold up and hopefully be proud of. It's in our nature to accept failure as human beings because it will inevitably happen to all of us. My challenge for you today is to not leave it up to chance. Chase after it, spend time with it, and make as much bad art as possible. Thank you.